Welcome to Self-Care from the Inside Out for Moms. I'm your host, Carrie McFarland, a certified life coach and founder of Moms Love Coaching. I help moms put themselves first to stop burnout. If you're a mom who is exhausted from carrying the load of getting it all done, then you are officially invited to join the conversation every week. It's the perfect time to take a break, grab your coffee, and focus on the most important person in your life, you. Welcome to Self-Care for Moms, for stressed out, overwhelmed, and burnt out moms to improve your life and your mental health and be happier overall. Welcome back to another week. All right, so we're starting something a little different. I am doing a little housekeeping in the beginning of this podcast, which I haven't done before. But I want to let people know who don't know, because it's relatively new, that we are also on YouTube. So if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to it, we're on all the platforms at this point. You can see us live and in person. Well, not live, but you can see us in person on YouTube. So check it out. It's at Moms Love Coaching, and you can like, subscribe, comment over there. Or if you just like listening to us, which is fine too, you can like, subscribe wherever you listen. The other thing I want to let people know is that we do have some free resources that I'm going to have a link in the show notes. Be warned, the list that I'm going to provide is not very pretty, but it will link you to all the free resources that we have, which look much better.
Is it just a list of links with 9 million characters and letters, right?
Yes, exactly. It's just a list of links, but when you click the link, you'll be taken to the free resource, and those look prettier than the list. But I wanted to have it all in one, have it all in one place for people instead of making you search one by one by one. So check it out. There's a lot of good stuff in there. My goodness, I think that's it. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. So this week we're going to be talking about loss of identity when you are a mother. I think that this topic is not talked about as much as it should be. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking today.
Apparently.
I don't know where that's coming from. So I don't think that loss of identity is talked about enough. And the reason that I think it's not talked about enough is because there's just this whole story that when mothers become mothers, that's who they are, and that's who they should be, and that's who they want to be, and nothing else is as important as being a mother, and everything else just sort of goes away. And if you talk against that, then why are you a mother in the first place, right? I mean, this is the stuff that comes up. And you know, how can you say that your kids aren't the most important things in your life, and all those things that people think and say that make it hard for moms to talk real talk about what it is to be a mom. So I don't know about you, Angie, but I mean, I'll just say it. When my oldest was born, I'll just preface it with, it's not that I didn't love her, because I did start thinking of her as my child before I gave birth. But when I gave birth and I was in the hospital and she was a newborn, I didn't feel motherly. Like, I didn't know how to feel. It was very strange to me that the day before I was a wife and a person and a daughter and, you know, all the different things that I was, now all of a sudden I'm considered a mother, and people are asking me questions and talking to me as if I've been a mother for years and years and years. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know how I was supposed to feel. Like, everything was, it was like an out of body experience. I mean, it was very, very strange to me. I remember my friend coming to visit me in the hospital, and my daughter was fussing a little bit, you know, kind of crying, but not crying, you know, that whole thing. And she was fussing a little bit, and she said, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I just met her. I don't know. I don't know what it means."
Me too.
Yeah, you tell me. You have 3 kids. This is my first. You tell me what it means. I don't know what it means.
We're both new here.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I
but
didn't I didn't have it like that when they were babies because I had, you know, I had spent a lot of time with my sisters. I have 2 older sisters and their babies when, they were having their babies, and my youngest nephew was, I think, I mean, at that time, when my son was born, he was, like, 3, but the older ones, the older nephews were, like, 9, 10, and so I'd had, you know, experience with them. So when Jacob was born, here's the other thing too is I was at home with him when he was born. I wasn't around family because we were in the military and we were stationed overseas, and so I was around a lot of women that were new moms that didn't have families. So sort of we grouped together, and this topic of trying to figure out who you are and try to be true to who you are while you're being a mom and trying to figure out how you are both and like you are both those things. You're not one or the other. You are both of those things and trying to develop a sense of an identity as a mom when it's completely brand new to you. Like we put a lot of expectations on what that should be.
right. Exactly. I mean, you wouldn't expect somebody to be the CEO of a company when they worked in the mailroom for a week. But it's when you have a baby, you expect the woman to know everything there is to know about babies. But I think for a lot of moms, it's just this very strange experience where, like you said, now it's all or nothing.
All
It's
right.
now you're a mom and you're nothing else. And I
Mhm.
think it's very easy to get sucked into that because that is what everybody expects.
And it is
They
really
expect
by
you to just
design
be a
too.
mother.
It's by design, Carrie, because regardless of how you become a mom, if you're parenting a newborn, they are all demanding, right?
Yeah.
If you become a mother for the first time to an older child, it might be a little bit different in terms of the physical demands. Still, nonetheless, you still have to that mind shift of, we want nothing but the best for our children, right? And we I think that bounces right up against our like, am I the best? How do I be the best for this kiddo that
Mhm.
I've been entrusted with? We don't take the time to think about it and reflect on it either and say, this is hard for me. I'm coming to understand myself in a different way, see myself in a new light. We think that it's all supposed to be sunshine and roses and, the first, after we've strung together 3 months of sleepless nights, we're like, what in the name? What did we
Yeah.
get ourselves into?
So I just want to call out what we have found as the definition of what the loss of identity is. It is a feeling of disconnection from one's sense of self, often resulting from significant life changes or stressors. And that's exactly how I felt. I
Yeah.
felt disconnected from who I was to who I was now supposed to be, and I had
Mhm.
a really hard time aligning those 2 things
Mhm.
because they were so in competition with each other or so just like butting up against each other. So, for example, having a job and being a mother. And yes, you can do that. But when you're a new mom trying to figure that out, that is a difficult thing to navigate because you've always done it a certain way because you haven't needed to worry about another little human. And now all of a sudden, you need to have this job and have all these responsibilities and still do everything that you're supposed to do. And also take care of this little human and deal with all the feelings around that and deal with your own self and deal with your own identity and all the things that go along with that. And those 2 things do not play nice together. They just don't. I mean, you figure it out eventually and you work your way through it and get to a place where it makes sense and you can meld the 2 and it works. But in the very beginning, those 2 things don't play nice together. And I think there's a lot of things like that. And so actually, before I even get into that, so some of the things that we have identified as challenges that new moms have that kind of contribute to this loss of identity are identified 4 things: shifts in priorities, expectations, culturally and societally, emotional disconnect, and impact on relationships. And I know there's all sorts of nuances and a lot more things that can go into that, but those are the 4 big things that I think really tie into loss of identity. Um, and I think priorities changing and expectations are the 2 biggest things that new moms especially have to deal with. Not just new moms, but I think new moms especially have to deal with, because like we were just talking about, it's like one day you are a person that doesn't have to take care of a little human, and the next day, like literally the next day, you are, and
Right.
sometimes you're not expecting it. Like if you're not having a planned C-section, or if the baby comes early or something like that, you might think you have another 2 weeks, another month, or whatever, right? And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, boom, like that's what happened to
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Um, you know,
Surprise.
yeah. So it's a culture shock in your own right. It's just kind of a shock to your system. I mean, there's just so many things that, I mean, we could have a podcast about each thing that happens to you when you become a new mom, but we'll just kind of meld them all
Right.
together. There's just so many things that go into it, but just your identity of being a caretaker just overshadows everything. And it's your conditioning, it's how people now treat you. I mean,
Mhm.
as soon as
Yeah.
you have the baby, the hospital doesn't even call you by your name anymore. You're mom
Just
now.
your mom.
You don't even like, you're not even your own person anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
crazy.
in a way, you kind of like that in the beginning because you're like, oh,
Yes, you
new
do.
mom, right? But at the same time, it's off-putting's not the right word. It's just weird. I'll just throw it out there. It's just weird. It feels weird to
Uh-huh.
be a mom, I think, in the very beginning when you're trying to navigate all that stuff. To your point before, newborns are extremely demanding. So not
Yeah.
only do you not have time for anything that you like to do in the very beginning, and that doesn't last forever, it's temporary, but you don't have the time, you don't have the, I don't want to say mental capacity, you're just tired, right? It's so easy to lose touch with who you are in that portion of motherhood. And I think what happens, at least this happened for me, is it's like once that happens, it's very hard to get it back.
Yes, it
It's very
is.
hard to get it back because you're, like I said, you think you should be a certain way, and then everybody else is telling you that too. So it's just sort of a fact in your mind that you are a mom now and you should be doing these certain things, and that is all that you should be doing. And your kids should be the most important thing in your life. And
The
I'm saying no.
Yeah.
And I did buy into that 100%. And I am no way saying that your kids aren't important. And I am no way saying that you shouldn't take care of your kids, or whatever people might be thinking when I say that your kids should not be the most important thing in your life, because they are an important part of your entire life.
Right.
And if you make them the most important part of your life, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure on them, and it's a lot of pressure on you,
Yeah.
because it means that you have to pour everything that you are as a person into your child, with the
Right.
expectation that your child will turn out in a certain way. And whatever that way, that vision is different for everybody, but however you think your child should be, like they should be great in sports, they should be great academically, they should want to get married and have their own kids, they should want to have a career, right? It's different for everybody, like whatever your expectation is. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter what your expectation is, they're not going to do it.
That is the truth.
No matter how much of yourself you pour into them, they're not going to do it. They're going to do their own thing because they are their own people. So stop putting the
Right.
pressure on yourself to think that if you don't make them the most important thing in your life, then somehow you're doing it wrong, because that is 100% not true.
Absolutely.
Okay, I got a little ranty.
Yeah, you did. I like it.
And social media does not help. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself to do things in the exact perfect way that you think that you should do them, because that exact perfect way doesn't exist. And even if it did, there's no way that you can achieve that 100% of the time. So all of the stuff you see on social media and the compare and despair that you have with it, they're showing you the very best of the best of the best. And half the time it's not even real. It's just a curated fantasy picture of everybody doing exactly what society thinks they should be doing. And it's not even real. So don't even bother looking at it, because it's just ridiculous.
Don't even bother.
You see, don't even bother. And you see the mom with the baby on the hip trying to make dinner with the dog running around at the feet and the other kid screaming in the background, and you losing your shit because of it. That's motherhood.
Yeah,
That's what it
that's
is.
motherhood.
So,
So we just
um,
blew the idealized version of motherhood out of the water
yes.
because it's like, that's enough of that. Don't pay attention to that. And I mean, I
Yeah.
do think that, especially when I was a new mom, like I would look at the mothering books or, watch a movie or a TV show or something. And I would be like, I want to work on this. I want to get better at this. And, that could have been helpful, but it could also very easily go over to the other side where it was about me judging myself, not feeling good enough, not feeling adequate. And that does not serve
Right.
anyone
No,
when
it
you're in
doesn't.
that frame
It
of
makes you
mind.
hide from it, right? It makes you
Right.
feel shameful. Mine was Caillou. Remember Caillou? Did you ever
Oh,
watch
yeah.
Caillou? The mother on Caillou, I was like, I aspire to be like her. She never got rattled.
She did.
Always, right? Always had the perfect thing to say. I was like, I want to be like her. So if some of you have never seen Caillou, I don't even know. It used to be on PBS, but um yeah, that's who I aspire to be. So let's talk about emotional disconnect. And that's kind of a big topic. But in terms of
It is.
motherhood, losing your identity or trying to get your identity back, I think the biggest thing that I want people to take out of that is you can have a sense of losing your freedom when you become a mother. And when you lose your freedom in any way, or you feel like you lose your freedom in any way, you feel restricted. And when you feel restricted, you push against it or try to get out of it. The way that you get out of that is to disconnect from it. You're avoiding things, you're avoiding talking about things. You don't want to delve into it too deep because it's not something people should talk about. So there's that shame factor because you're kind of hiding how you feel from other people and you're hiding how you feel from yourself. And the more that you do that, the more disconnection there is between yourself and your identity. I think the only way to get out of that is to talk about it,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, to talk about it and not make it so shameful to say, you know what? I want to be a mother and I wanted to be a mother. Um, and I still do. Uh, and also there's a lot of parts of it that I do not like. There's a lot of parts of it that suck.
It's a both and, it's not an either or. It's
Right.
that you can exist with loving that child or those children more than your breath itself, right? And also being like, well, this isn't all it's cut up to be. Parts of this that I really don't like at all. And that thing about shame is it doesn't like to be spoken. So when
Right.
you speak about it, it helps to alleviate the shame and helps you to perhaps connect with another person who may be feeling the same way. And then you
Yeah.
can support each other.
I mean, if you think that you should be a certain way as a mom because of what society is telling you or maybe what your culture has taught you, so you have these beliefs about what a mom should be, and then you get to that point and you don't like those things, that can be very shocking, and it
Yeah,
can be very
unsettling.
unsettling. Yeah, unsettling. I mean, what I learned when I had my kids, I didn't like playing with my kids. You know, they talk about,
Yeah.
playing pretend play and things like that. I'm just going to say it. I hated that.
Ah,
I hated pretend play. I'll tell you the other thing I hated. I hated hide and seek. Hated hide and seek. Number 1, my anxiety couldn't take it
right.
because then my child's hiding somewhere and I don't know where they are. Uh,
I
No,
never
thank you. Right?
thought. Yes,
It's too
uh,
anxiety provoking. It's also just boring. I mean, all that stuff to me is just boring. I did much better with when they were a little older and we could do like crafts and puzzles and,
right,
you know, take walks and things like that. I was much better at that. But the
right,
actual pretend play, forget it. I didn't like it, but everybody talked about how enriching it was and how great it is for bonding and the mom groups I was in, I would see the moms on the floor with the kids playing pretend play. And I did feel a little ashamed that I didn't like that. I'm like, what is wrong with me? You know?
right,
So I didn't really talk about that. Now I talk about it all the time, but I didn't talk about it at the time because I did feel like something was wrong with me. How could you not want to play with your kids? And then
right.
I realized because it's boring.
It's not my cup of tea. Yes, for sure.
So I think normalizing those things and talking about it is the best way to get out of that disconnect because then all of a sudden it's like you're aligning who you are with what you're doing instead
Right.
of pretending and avoiding it. The last thing I want to talk about is relationships. And I know relationship with your spouse or partner once you have a kid, like again, that is like a whole nother topic. But I'm talking about relationships in general, just basically how people view you, how you view people, things that you may have done, like going out with friends
Mhm.
or seeing family more often, or even going on date nights maybe with your spouse or partner, things like that. And those things can drop off very quickly because now you
Yep.
don't have time to see your friends. Maybe your friends have kids that are different ages. This happened with me and one of my friends. The nap times never aligned, and we were both
Right,
super vigilant about naps. And so we just never saw each other. And now maybe you're not seeing family as often because it's harder to travel. You're not having date night or with your spouse or partner that you used to do. That can lead to you feeling very isolated. You have no outlet to talk about the things that you want to talk about or just feel supported because you are spending time with another person and hanging out with them. It's hard to feel supported and understood when you are alone all the time. And that's basically, I mean, you're with your kid, but you're basically alone. It's actually even more complicated than just being alone because you are by yourself, but also constantly in charge of something
right,
and
right,
constantly having to think ahead and constantly having to do things. And it's not just like being alone and I can do what I would like to do. And that's different than being home alone with your kids because now you're in charge. You're not really
right,
alone,
right.
right?
Gotta be responsible.
Gotta be responsible. But yeah, so that can lead to isolation. And I think just like when your priorities change and you lose touch with who you are, it's like once you lose touch with the people that you used to spend your time with, it's also hard to get back to that. They move on to their stuff, you move on to your stuff, and it's hard to get back to. It's almost like you're starting over with
Yep,
um who you're spending time with and your circle of friends changes, but that process, that transition, that while that's happening can feel very isolating and lonely, and unsupportive. And so I just think that communication is the best way to deal with that. And now there's texting, right? So you can text, you can instant message. And I know it's not the same and it's not ideal to keep a friendship that way, but it is better than nothing. And the one thing I will say about that is if nobody is reaching out to you, just reach out to them. Don't get it in your head that because they're not reaching out to you, they don't care. And why should you always be the one to have to reach out? Because that will isolate you because you're going to start feeling resentful about the fact that they never reach out to you, which
Right.
probably isn't true either. But I mean, that's how people think of it. Like they never reach out to me, they never call me, they never do this, they never do that. Just wipe that away. Just keep in touch with people. Just throw them a quick text.
It's for your own mental health and well-being. So,
Yeah, for the same reasons that you are hesitating to reach out to somebody that maybe you haven't reached out to in a while, that's how they're thinking too. So
exactly.
just be the one to do it and drop all the drama about they never reach out to me and why should I always be the one? Just forget about all that. Byron Katie calls that your ego. Don't
Exactly.
listen to your ego. Your ego wants to be super important all the time, but sometimes you have to just kind of push that aside and just do what you need to do for yourself. And if reaching out to people through text, even if they're not initiating it, if that is what's going to help you stay connected, then just do that. I mean, there's so
Please
many
do it.
things that you can do that with. There's text, there's Marco Polo, there's Voxer. I'm sure there's 5 million other things that I either don't know about or aren't thinking of. There's so many ways to keep in touch with people. Just use the tools that you have. They're easy. And I guarantee you, if you do that, people will reach back out to you. And then you'll have a back and forth. And then, it can help you with the isolation. So, to summarize that, to get yourself out of that loss of identity, I want you to give yourself permission to view your time as just as important, if not more important, than all the things on your schedule. And when you're a newborn, or when you're a newborn, when you have a newborn, when you're a newborn, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
When you
Far
have
back
a
in time.
newborn, I know that's difficult, but there's still something that you can do for yourself, even if it's super, super small, just to keep that sense of self for you. Just
Mhm.
give yourself permission. There's nothing wrong with having me time, even when you have a newborn.
Even
Um,
when you have a newborn, for sure. And that might just be someone come and sit with the rock the baby while I take a shower or a bath or a
yeah,
nap.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And we talked a little bit about social media and comparing yourself. Don't worry about that. Find your people. Find the people that you feel comfortable with, that you can talk to, that you don't have to censor yourself and cut yourself some slack because you're doing fine.
Right.
And then just mindfulness and communicating. Acknowledge how you're feeling and don't push away what you're feeling. When you start to push away how you actually feel, you're disconnecting from yourself. And once you disconnect from yourself, you're going to disconnect with other people. So just stay mindful of that and know that anything that you're thinking or feeling is not wrong or bad, and just embrace it and then communicate openly with other people. So not only do you not have to love every second of motherhood, but you can also reach out to other people. Reach out to other people and talk about that. That is what is going to help you keep your own identity. And I think that's what we got.
I think that's what we got too.
All right. You are the most important person in your life. And when you take care of yourself, everybody else benefits.
For sure.
All right, everybody. That's where we're going to leave it. Have a good week. We will see you next week.
See you next time.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. This makes it easier for everyone to find us and helps us spread our message about self care from the inside out. Have a wonderful week, and remember, making yourself the priority is the highest form of self care.